I have a kind of mixed feelings about this film. I think the film like has some heart to it, and there's just certain elements of it are just dragged out just a little bit too much, and there are certain elements that are overbearing.
The first few minutes was just straight the Three Stooges. Like it was just like on some Three Stooges. We got folks getting pies in the face.
I didn't hate this film. Or let me say it another way, like this movie to me is not worse than Superman 2.
It's a funny movie, way more than it is something I can look at, take it seriously, and be like, this is cinema. I cannot look at this movie and say that.
This was Spider-Man 3 before Spider-Man 3.
In
some ways.
A little bit. That's the highest unpraised.
Yo, what's poppin', everybody? It's the No Level Cap Podcast. We back once again with the crew to talk about all the anime, all the gaming, all the nerd culture, none of the bullshit. Let me introduce my incredible co-hosts. We've got the Collective Collectors, the master of Twitch, Will Coleman. What's going on, Will?
Nothing much, my guy, man. I'm trying to rally a strong finish on Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm on chapter 16 right now.
Hey.
So we closing in on finishing it, I believe. So I'm trying to get that done. I'm trying to get back to Persona 3 for a little bit before the 29th gets here because that's going to take up a lot of my time. So, yeah, it's just been gaming. I hadn't been streaming none this week because I've been trying to put in a lot of work, trying to make my dollar. So,
do you still have to go through Integrate?
Yeah, I still got to do that, but I'll try to fit that in as quick as I possibly can. If I don't get through it, I'll still get the Rebirth, like, at least by like the second week of March, hopefully.
Yeah, chapter 16, you're definitely close.
Oh yeah. Next up, we got the Black Daredevil, the secret weapon of No Level Cap, Terrence Flowers. What's going on, Terrence?
Hey, what's good, everyone? This week I've been watching the Capcom Cup. It's been pretty good this week. They had the groups. For those that don't know, Capcom Cup is the big Capcom Pro Tour. It's part of the Capcom Pro Tour for Street Fighter 6 right now, and this is just the big culmination of all the events that happened last year and also this year. And so this week they've been doing like the different groups for all the players, and tomorrow, we're recording this on Saturday. Tomorrow, Sunday, they're going to be doing the top 16, and it's been some pretty good matches, so I'm looking forward to the top 16. I'll try and catch probably the tail end of it, or I'll watch the VOD of it, but yeah, it's been pretty good tournament so far.
Okay. Next up, we've got the living cartoon, the man with the golden voice, Rakeem Beck. What's going on, Rakeem?
Hey, weirdly enough, I've kind of done a fusion of what both Will was doing and what Terrence was doing. I've been playing Final Fantasy Remake in preparation for Rebirth, although I've already completed the game. I really just playing to kind of refresh my memory on certain things. And kind of going through the gameplay systems, getting back adjusted to it, because I played the game at launch and that was 4 years ago. And then on top of that, I've been playing the Rebirth demo, which I have thoroughly enjoyed. It's been a long time, maybe since I was like a little kid, where I've played a demo this much and like tried to explore it and go back to it and relearn things. And there's like little secrets in the demo by getting intel and extra boss fights. It's a cool demo. If you haven't gotten a chance, try the FF7 Rebirth. If you have a PS5, try the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth demo. It's pretty good. I've also been watching the Capcom Cup, and like Terrence said, it has been a joy to watch. I've also caught a little bit of Street Fighter League today, because I didn't know that was Street Fighter League this weekend too. I saw Minardi was doing double duty. He was playing the Street Fighter League, and he was playing. He's preparing for losers bracket in the Capcom Cup on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. So this is going to be an exciting time for that. I always enjoy watching fighting games and fighting game esports. So that's what I've been on. Other than that, I've also been learning to play the piano this week. I just got the inkling to kind of learn. So I got a keyboard and started practicing. And as my roommates can attest to, I've been plugging away on the thing.
Yeah,
true Renaissance man, gamer, esports watcher, piano man. It's like, what else you gonna toss in? Voice actor, Academy Award winner.
I swear, bro, like what's really good.
I have got none of those things. Do not look me up. I ain't got nothing for you on IMDb yet.
Y'all heard that?
Hey man,
It's all good.
he's gonna be
Yeah,
EGOT
is the
status
important
before you know it.
Yeah. Next up, we've got One Punch Man, the master of combos himself, Mr. Devin Butts. What's going on, Devin?
I'm doing pretty good, man. This week, I'm a avid fighting game fan, so I've been checking out some of the Capcom Cup and Street Fighter League action. Just a while ago today, Team Bandits, Mina, Shanghai, Kaba, and Minardi or Christitarian, they won, so they're world champions. It's pretty dope. I heard that Minardi was out there just letting his teammate just get the popcorn and watch. He was just like, I got it. So, but it's crazy. Right. What's crazy is tomorrow, like, it just dawned on me, man, somebody's gonna be a millionaire tomorrow from playing Street Fighter. Like, that's man,
crazy to think about.
That's just crazy to think about, man. Like, all of us here are gamers and just thinking about, I'm sure we've have hopes and still have dreams of something like that popping off in some regard, even if it's not like a professional player, just being in that space and like something like that is taking you that far to somebody tomorrow's going to be crowned the best Street Fighter 6 player and they're going to have $1 million. And then the other people going to walk away with like 6 figures as well. So that's just crazy to think about, man. So that's been dope to experience, been making some Tekken content. So yeah, man, just fighting games are in a pretty good spot, man. Tekken is still hot, so yeah, Street Fighter tomorrow is about to be crazy with Capcom Cup, man.
That's what's up.
I know why we're here, man.
Give me a second. I'm getting to it. Of course, I am Sage Ashford, the man who won't shut up. I'm not as big into the fighting games, so I hadn't been watching no Capcom Cup like the rest of them. I have been playing a little bit of Final Fantasy, trying to catch up. I don't know what for. I don't have no PS5, but I guess I just got into the mood of things of just like wanting to be in the Final Fantasy VII universe for a little bit and see what's going on. And I never did finish Remake, so I want to go ahead and finish it. And then I'll probably play through Crisis Core just to see what's popping with that. And then, I'll probably just go back to Yakuza afterwards. So, but anyway, if you didn't know, No Level Cap goes live every Monday morning. We're on YouTube for video fans. If you prefer the audio version, we're live on Spotify as well. So this week, we have decided to get into another movie review. We're back into the Superman universe. We're covering the 1983 film Superman 3. Directed by Richard Lester again, with a screenplay from David and Leslie Newman, basically the crew from Superman 2 minus Mario Puzo. The budget was around $39 million. The film made about $80.2 million, so it did make a profit, but it is also trending downward. Superman 2 cost $54 million and made $190 million, and that was nothing compared to the first film, which cost $55 million and made $300 million. So you see, it's just on a downward decline. But this is where usually you get the differing opinions on Superman as to whether or not people generally love Superman 1. It's mostly love for Superman 2, and then you get to Superman 3, and it's kind of like suspect. And This is quite the film, and so I don't want to waste no time. Let's just get into it. Terrence, what'd you think of the film?
Kicking it off with me. All right, let's go.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'll cut to the chase. I don't think this is a horrible movie, but it's not a good one either. It's not like a cinematic masterpiece by any means, but it's not like total dumpster trash either. It has actually a lot of good ideas, but it just doesn't execute on them that well, at least in my opinion. It's like they essentially took you have two separate movies and they like smashed them together. It's like you have the movie with Richard Pryor and, him pretty much getting in over his head with Ross, the millionaire, billionaire, whatever he is, and Ross and his crew. And then you have the Superman movie, which has like Superman, his relationship with Lana, and kind of like dealing with the duality of Clark and Superman once again. And they essentially just took those and just like, all right, let's do the fusion dance and see what happens. And like, it's one of those classic cases of not putting your experience points in the area that you should have. They should have just gone all in on a Superman movie. It's like they didn't want to commit to doing just a Superman movie. So they figured, well, let's toss Richard Pryor and this other subplot into it as well. And I think it would have worked better if it was strictly about Superman, Lana, and then like I'm assuming Sage, pretty much it's just red kryptonite that's in this film, right? I mean, they don't call it that, but that's essentially what it is, right?
It is one of the forms of colored kryptonite. Red, you could say red. They all have like outside of green kryptonite, they're never really consistent in what they do to me. So, but yeah, you could say this was red kryptonite.
Okay, I just know that like the effects that Superman kind of goes through in this film is pretty much like similar to what I've seen before with like red kryptonite. Although I know that red kryptonite, there's like variations of it and everything. I mean, it's comics, so you know nothing's ever like super consistent.
Yeah.
But essentially, for the sake of argument, we'll just say red kryptonite, even though, like I said, they don't call it that in the movie at all. But I think the movie would have been better if we just focused on Superman going back to Smallville and kind of like focusing on how things have changed there, like his relationship with Lana, because now we're kind of assuming that his whole relationship with Lois is kind of done, or at least the movie, makes it like that. I know behind the scenes there was some talk of Margot Kidder got kind of pushed out, but that's like rumor. They say it's true, not true. I don't know.
Pushed out is not what I've heard. What I've heard is that her and Gene Hackman were both basically like they didn't like what had gone on with as far as like the directing stuff with Superman 1, and so they just weren't in this film out of like protest.
Yeah, like they kind of. I heard they also got scenes cut too, so I don't know like how much they actually filmed versus how much was made it into the film. I heard that it had a very messy production behind the scenes, which kind of explains why it's such a jumbled up mess. It's like you have the computer stuff, which, based on what I've heard about what previous scripts were like, Brainiac was supposed to be in this, so I don't know if like the computer kind of is supposed to be Brainiac or what.
Okay,
but yeah, when I saw the computer, I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure this was probably meant to be Brainiac, but they couldn't.
Gus Gorman was supposed to be Brainiac.
Okay.
And then like the supercomputer was supposed to be like, he was supposed to be inhabiting Gus Gorman's mind. And then he was eventually going to be like, make the supercomputer for himself to like make himself more powerful and shit like that.
See, that makes a lot more sense. But
yeah,
with what we have, I think that it would have functioned much better if we had just focused on like Superman and his relationship with Lana and how Lana is different from Lois, and that Lois like Superman. It's like, I mean, of course, once, Clark reveals that he is Superman, then it kind of comes together. But in this case, it feels like Lana likes Clark more than Superman. I feel like that would have been interesting dynamic to follow up on, considering the themes of the previous movie. And then, of course, you have the whole duality thing going on with Clark and Superman with the red kryptonite. I don't know how that would have been incorporated without Richard Pryor and the millionaire. I'm sure, I mean, there's some other way that could have been incorporated that would have been even cleaner, but I think that sort of film would have been more interesting and more Superman focused. But because you have Richard Pryor and you have Diet Lex Luthor in the movie, it essentially just makes it makes it worse. One other thing that I just didn't like about this movie is how, and it's pretty much a theme with all the Superman movies, there's just certain plot points that they just do not explain at all. They just like, all right, we're just going to go by the seat of our pants and, you're just going to take it. It's like they don't explain this, man, how computers, like I get it that this is the 1980s, but their view of computers back then, or at least, their view of computers in this movie is just like so over the top. It's
delusional.
Like, delusional. Like the fact that one man who just went through a week or like 2 or whatever of computer programming just figured out on his own how to like pretty much rewrite the system. And the fact that he can take over a satellite and have it just do random things like change the weather, go out in space and collect random materials to make their own kryptonite. It's like, what is this?
I mean, you got to think about this movie's from 1983. And so like, I guess they didn't, I know for a fact that it would be decades before people kind of understood how computers work. I mean, like really, when you think about it, it's only in the last, I'm going to say 2010s. Is when writers in like Hollywood got a grasp on how computers actually work and how programming actually worked as a job. In the 80s, they had no idea. So I assume what was going on in their heads is they treated it like any other job. And it's just like, hey, sometimes you're just good at a thing and you excel at it beyond what everybody else is capable of.
Yeah, and like I said, I get that because it's the 80s, but at the same time, it's still very. I think even for the 80s, it's a little over the top in turn because I mean, it's not like computers weren't mainstream, but they existed, and it's like there was some knowledge of how computers work, and the way that they made it in this film was like way over the top. But anyway, like that, yeah, like just certain plot points with that, like the computer being the big boss at the end, just. Yeah, there's just certain stuff that they just don't really go about explaining. Like I said, that was also a case in the previous two movies. And even as a more comedic movie, which this movie definitely is, like the first 10 minutes are like so over the top that it's like, yeah, it pretty much sets the tone for this being not a movie that you could take seriously at all. Like it's just, it was way too much that was going on in the first 10 minutes. But even as a comedy, I feel like some of the humor, at least in my opinion, when some stuff happened, I was more like, what? As opposed to like laughing. Like I know there was one scene where they were at the crosswalk after Gus had like rewritten the code for the satellite to do something. And like people were crossing when the light was red and it was like changing and it was just chaos. And I remember like the traffic sign. The green one went up to the red one and just started boxing. I'm like, what is happening?
Hey, that was lit, man. I ain't gonna lie.
Yo,
that was so weird. I will admit though that the Leaning Tower of Pisa gag, I did think that was funny, just because my man was so frustrated. Like pretty much he said, "Fuck off, Superman."
Twice
in the first part, and then at the end when Superman corrected the tower, they were like, "Man, just throw it all away." So I will admit that did get a laugh out of me, but there were so many moments that were more like, "What is happening?" than me just actively just finding it funny. But just to wrap it all up, I'd say that this movie had potential, but it kind of just faltered in so many spots. And I know that there's points that you all are going to hit on, so I'm not going to try and go into everything. But if I were to give it a score, I'd give it it's like right in the middle. It's a 5, like straight 5. Like Superman, the last movie, I gave a 6. So it's like this one isn't better. It isn't like massively worse. It's just like right in the middle. And that's pretty much where it lands. Like I said, I don't think it's a horrible movie, but I don't think it's a great movie either. So it's like just run of the mill average.
There.
It's there. It exists.
All right. Okay.
There's a movie that has Superman and Richard Pryor together, and it exists.
All right. Will, how do you feel about this movie, man?
Oh man, I'm kind of in the same boat as Terrence. It's them first few minutes. Because I was like, I'm gonna skip it because the first time I remember watching the first movie, I'm like, man, these credits running a little fucking long. I want to get to the movie, and then I just started seeing stuff randomly happening, and I'm like, am I watching the Tom and Jerry section or something right now? Because everything just started going crazy. Homegirl hit the hot dog cart, then these booths fell over, and then Homeboy had like.
One person got distracted by looking at some titties, and it just went all wrong from that point on.
It did.
Oh, titties!
Sure did.
The whole city fell apart.
Homeboy got hit with the paint. I thought it was bird shit at first. I ain't gonna lie. I was like, oh damn, you got shit on in daylight. It was paint. And then he got
a fucking ego shit on him if it was that much splatter.
Everything just went like just shit like in the first bit of the movie, and I'm just like, all right, y'all acting out a little too much. Y'all went crazy. I think this was mostly Richard Pryor's writing as far as I'm concerned. But hey, it's a funny movie, way more than it is something I can look at, take it seriously, and be like, this is cinema. I cannot look at this movie and say that. I really cannot. Richard Pryor feels like he was more the star of this movie than Superman was. I feel like because I kept seeing him a lot. And Terrence, thank you for touching on it because that was something that really threw me off. This man literally was standing in the unemployment line trying to get his money or wherever he might have been. He was in this line going crazy. And he just happened to get a matchbook from one of the fellow men in the line and looked at it and was like, I can make money this way. Went and took a class, figured it out instantly. And I'm just sitting here like, there are people who take years doing this. You just figured it out in a week. Excuse me, is that how this? I'm like, is this how this works?
No.
Then, I'm like, that's not how this supposed to work. Oh, where's my check? It's for utilities. 85 grand, sir? What is you doing? $85 grand from the company. But what's so funny, and want to know what else makes this really unrealistic to me? He didn't even get punished for that. He got pulled into a scheme.
Not at all.
Well, he didn't get punished because the dude was like, oh, I can use this. He was like trying to be on some villain shit and then ran into a supervillain. And the supervillain was like, oh, I got purpose for this. Come here. I can use you to like fuck up the price of coffee and then oil. And then I don't know what the fuck dude's doing after a while.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what it was. It was just a hodgepodge of things. That's all it was. And then once Superman got in the way, he was like, let's put him out of his misery real quick. Figured out he was weak to kryptonite, and then told Richard Pryor to get in the kitchen and turn the Walter White. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And then afterwards, he put on the military outfit and pretty much turned him into Curtis Mayfield in the suit and said, I'm your pusher man, and handed him the rock.
Man, that was so like, I'm not gonna talk about what I thought of the movie as a whole just yet, but like that scene was bad. It made no sense.
They could have done without that scene at all. There could have been a much easier way to give him the kryptonite. That went on way too long.
Superman knows what kryptonite looks like at this
point.
That
was the big thing. Like if it had been another color, like because I know Terrence was alluding to like red kryptonite. If it had been another color, I'd have been like, okay, sure. Or if it had been like something small and like the kryptonite was in it and it didn't look like, that would have been cool. Yeah, but he just showed up with a big ass rock and was like, hey, man, come get this green rock. And I'm like, Superman should have slapped that shit away. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? Nope.
You just encountered this on the last in exit
in the first movie. Thank you very much, Thank you very much. I was like, no, bro, like what?
It's very, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Thank you, Devin. He did that. I'm like, you telling me you don't recognize what this is? You ain't them brain cells ain't clicking and saying, this could be hurting me right now. And I could be on the floor. But instead, I'm like, I'm gonna put this on the shelf when I get home. I'm gonna show it off. But it's such a weird movie. It's a fun movie, but it's a weird one. It's a funny one, and I gotta give a little credit to the effects. I will give them credit for that, especially when Homegirl transformed into the cyborg. When I seen that, I was like, cool, but I can see how it's aged. It's kind of cool, but I see it. Because I was just like, oh, why is the machine doing this to her? Then she came out with that walk. Just sitting there like, I was like, it looks great. But it's funny. It's a movie. If you watch it, you'll get a laugh or two here and there. Other than that, you're going to be kind of looking at the screen like, who told y'all to put this shit out? So it's about a 4 for me, man. It's about a 4.
All right.
It's about a 4. It's not something I would recommend you watch unless you want some shits and giggles out of it. What's up, Terrence?
Oh, I was just going to follow up on what you said about the effects. I forgot to mention it, but what had me laughing the hardest was actually the Clark versus Superman fight in the junkyard when Superman like lunged forward at him, hit him in the chest. The way Clark went back, it reminded me of
man, them effects were bad.
Sub-Zero MK Mythologies. That was the hardest I laughed in the movie when I saw that. I laughed so hard I had to rewind it a couple of times. Like I was like, man, this is comedy right here. Unintentional comedy.
All right, so we got a 5 and we got a 4. Rakeem, what did you think of the film, bro?
Yo, so I have a kind of mixed feelings about this film. I want to say, first of all, I don't hate this film at all. I think the film like has some heart to it, and there's just certain elements of it are just dragged out just a little bit too much, and there are certain elements that are overbearing. I think at the core of this film is the story of everyday people. It was kind of funny at the beginning when the movie started, with Richard Pryor down on his luck in the unemployment line, trying to figure things out. He finds this course for the computer class, and then he ends up becoming this natural computer genius and is, kind of swept up in the plans of a business and a millionaire. And there's kind of these themes for a lot of other characters like Lana, like the struggle of the everyday person dealing with like their finances and people at the top taking advantage of them. That is a kind of a cool storyline. Like, there's actually some meat to that. I actually sort of thought that was cool. However, I feel like some of these social commentary is kind of put to the side, like in the scenes of Richard Pryor, where his performance is, which is decent. I think his performance is decent. It kind of overtakes those character building moments. I almost started when I first started beginning this film, going back to the opening. It felt like National Lampoon Superman edition. Just like 10 minutes of just slapstick nonsense. I think the blind man with the dog, and he gets the car that like puts the lines on the road and is like riding with them all over the place, and all these different things are happening in this one scene. It set the tone for me to like, okay, this movie's not taking itself seriously, so I will go ahead and not take it too seriously too. I do like the fact that this feels much more grounded than Superman 2. I think although the special effects at the end got a little over the top, like early on, because you're not dealing with superheroes, the special effects, kind of made the movie kind of go at a more natural pace. Superman going back to his hometown for his class reunion is like at the core, the beginning of the movie. And you get to see Clark returning home, seeing his old classmates, his old bullies, his old love interests, and just seeing how people go. And, as an older adult who has been to his own class reunion, this was kind of cool for me because, when you go back, like, you kind of want to see, like, who made it out? Who's still kind of worrying about high school and football and crap like that? Like, people are still on that shit. What you about to say, Sage?
He went back to that white ass school with no colors allowed. Cause I seen that high school class of 65. I was like, yeah, I already know it's like. I seen all that. Man, I tell you, the one part that tore me up was right after the high school reunion was over, and Lana was like, man, all this potato salad still here. You know what's wrong? And that man Clark was like, too much mayonnaise. Couldn't breathe, man. I was like, yo.
I love how it so for the viewers, Clark at a certain point, he goes back to his old love interest who never really got to do anything with in high school, and they kind of get to interact with each other. He finds out she has a son, and he's kind of in this like kind of figuring out, hey, do I like this chick again? There's something here. Do I like the kid? And they kind of go out together, and they go to this picnic, and the picnic was hilarious. When he like touched the food, and it was the dog food for the dog. And he was like, this tastes pretty good. I don't care.
I feel like they was trying to say that Lana couldn't cook. Because like the thing with the potato salad, and she was like, oh, it's too much. It was like, no, my husband loved mayonnaise. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then now he's eating the dog food, and he was like, oh, yeah, this. Because he looked at the other food and was like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, some green stuff, some brown stuff.
And then like he ate the dog food, and that was somehow better. I'm like, all right. Then.
Now that you mention it, that's a good point. Yeah. Maybe so.
Very good point.
And actually that kind of leads into one of my favorite scenes of the film. After that picnic, Lana's son gets in trouble. Somehow he gets knocked out in the field.
Okay, so does anybody know how the fuck that happened?
I don't.
I assume he tripped and he like fell on a rock. It looks like because his head was right next to a rock.
Right? I know he was bleeding.
Yeah,
I mean,
all they showed.
That's what happened. How come they couldn't show that? Like, no, you're clearly correct. That is clearly what happened because he was on the ground by a rock with some blood coming out of his head, and I'm like, y'all couldn't show this. And also, what in the fuck happened in the 2 or 3 minutes that Clark and Lana sat down that this little idiot then ran off and fucked himself up? Bro, how?
I'm gonna just be real. That's what that is.
Hey, man, the struggles of a single mother, I guess.
I was just about to sound like Lana goofy ass was probably somewhere like, hey man, this is why I needed a dad around. Like, no, a dad is not gonna solve your kid being this silly.
Yes. Well, in this case, if it's Superman, maybe. But still, going back to my favorite scene in the film is not this scene specifically because Clark eventually saves the boy as Superman, and the boy, ends up idolizing Superman as his hero. And my favorite scene in the film is actually like when Lana calls Clark to show up at the boy's birthday party, and it's secretly a party for Superman, and like they appreciate, like that was like the first time like in a while like people like really appreciated Superman. They gave him his own parade. Everybody was there. They gave him hoorah. Like you don't get to see that all the time with like superhero movies where like they get appreciated to that extent. And it's a good segue into later in the film when he goes to the dark side and gets emo, and like everybody's like, "Oh, this guy's edgy, man. He's lost it, man. He's a has been." Like it's a good contrast to that where he was like applauded early, and he becomes a bum later. How perspective can shift so quickly on a person.
Man, they so quick to shift on him. They shifted so hard in this last movie, and then this movie
know,
they did
right?
the same thing.
They sure did. They sure did. But yeah,
this movie.
those were elements of the movie I thought were strong, like the character building for Clark, like as Clark Kent. He got to spend a lot of time as Clark Kent in this movie, and I felt like that was kind of something I wanted to see as a film goer watching these Superman films. How does he feel? How does he fit into this world and society as a regular person? And then going back to Smallville, without his parents, both his parents are deceased now. He doesn't really have a lot of ties to this, but he does have a lot of memories. And some trauma and stuff, he had to deal with. And seeing like his old bully became a nothing. He basically turned in, what's the dude from Back to the Future, Biff? He kind of like that, where he's like a has-been. Biff Kennedy, he's like, this dude's a drunk now. And he's like holding on to his old glory in high school as in football team. Like, that's crazy.
That's a restraining order.
Thank you. Okay, I'm glad somebody else noticed.
He was harassing the hell out of her.
So creepy.
Yeah.
Like, he just kept showing up everywhere Lana was calling her on the phone. She moved to a whole other city.
Sure did.
Like, Lana, I just wanted to see, like, bro, leave her alone. She's not. Pack that shit up, bro.
Actually, he was a part of the impetus for why she left in the first place. He kept freaking harassing her. And it's like, you ain't got nothing else. You ain't got nothing else. And a lot of abusers do shit like that.
For me.
And that's some cool commentary too, because a lot of abusers pull shit like that to get you to be at your lowest and like take the men for their shitty behavior. And like they push you to like, you ain't got nothing else. You need me. You ain't got nobody else. You a single mother and nobody loves you. Like, I appreciate her for like being able to kind of break through that bullshit and move on with her life.
And man,
that was kind of cool.
Was around and Brad was just so upset.
He was.
No, stop getting with Clark. But nice guys finished last, damn it.
He sure said nice guys finished last. But yeah, okay, so those were kind of my positives for the movie. My negatives for the movie, I felt like the Richard Pryor parts got a little overbearing towards the end. I remember the scene specifically where he was overriding the computer and the dude was like the security guard. I felt like that scene went way too long. Like it just like took forever. They got drunk together and he was drunk doing this stuff. And I was like, at a certain point, I told Sage this. I was counting like the minutes. I was like, Superman ain't been on screen for like 20 minutes. What is going on? This is ridiculous, bro. This Superman or Richard Pryor? No, this is Richard Pryor featuring Clark Kent. That's what this movie was. But yeah, it's kind of to sum things up because I'm going a little long. I never feel like the super rich villain was never really a threat. I feel like everyone around him was smarter than he was, including Gus. He was just trying to use people to his benefit, but he never really knew. He was doing typical rich dudes things to kind of take over, but even like in the context of what he was trying to accomplish, it was so small. It was like that episode of Justice League where Lex Luthor realizes that the main one, what's that? Gorilla Garage plan to turn everybody to a gorilla. It's like, that's all you wanted to do, bro? We got all this power. You just want to turn people into gorillas? That's why I feel like this movie, like, this dude's controlling the weather from a satellite. Got a giant supercomputer. It's like, yeah. So only now they mess with the coffee stock. Ain't gotta worry about it no more. The oil stock, about it no more.
Well, all of that, I mean, like, in fairness, that's kind of realistic because, like, he did all that manipulating all to make himself more money.
Yeah.
Like, he could have done way more with it, but all he really wanted was more money in his pocket. It's like, bro, you already rich. Like, you need more money? He was like, yes.
I'm not gonna lie. There was a quote in the movie that I was like, yeah, this applies to every millionaire. It's like, I think he said, like, it's not enough that I should succeed, that others should fail.
Others must fail. I was like, shit, is that where that quote comes from? That quote is like famous.
I think it comes from somewhere else, but it's like, yeah.
No,
it's in
I think he said in a film it was quoted from somewhere else in the film.
He said that. He said Attila the Hun said that.
Attila the Hun. I don't know if he said that. I'm gonna have to look that up because, like, I remember.
Didn't he also say at one point, I hate greed? I'm like,
yeah, no, he told Gus that. He's like, Gus, if there's one thing that I hate, it's greed. I'm like, bro, look in the mirror, please. My man wanted to wipe out a whole country just so that he could get a little bit more money from coffee. It's like, come on, man.
I want all the coffee.
Okay, so I think I see where they say it came from. He said Attila the Hun. A few sources I'm seeing saying it's Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But back to wrapping up. Way too much Richard Pryor. I think his scenes kind of went a little long. I never felt like the big rich dude was ever really a threat. And that's kind of why the Superman storyline of him getting the kryptonite and turning into edgelord Superman. I was watching the evil Superman part, and the way it was cut, it felt like it was more like Superman in a midlife crisis than Superman being evil.
Thank you.
It was like, I'm mad. Let me push the lead tower of Giza.
Well,
I'm gonna drink. I'm gonna fuck hoes. Nah, that's just a midlife crisis, bro. That's not evil.
well, a couple
that one
things.
time with the oil tanker thing, though. Yeah,
Couple
go
things.
ahead.
One, he had to in favor of your thing. Was his suit looked like it hadn't been washed in a while.
Yeah.
He had
the
like
face.
the 5 o'clock shadow.
The darkness was taking him.
It's like he just went through a divorce or something.
Yes.
You want to know what this was? This was Spider-Man 3 before Spider-Man 3. In some ways.
A little bit. That's
Definitely.
that's the highest unpraised.
Mm.
But yeah,
And then the other thing I was gonna say real quick is like it was as if he's like they tried to show the dark side of Superman, but aside from that oil tanker shit, which wasn't his idea, like he
And he
didn't really
fixed
have
it.
no dark shit in him. He was like
Nope.
the
was
worst
just-
I can think to do is like I'm gonna push the Tower of Pisa over. I'm a fuck some corns into the walls, shatter some drinks, and I'm gonna get drunk. Like, sit your ass down, Superman. You too much of a nice guy, even when you a bad guy. Get the fuck out.
I was like, this ain't villainous. This is exactly what that kid said. He said a fuck, man. You a little slump, man. It's gonna be all right.
Hey, you
He's
forget,
mildly dickish.
you forget when he first hit him. Lana told him, you gotta go to the bridge. He's like, what
Oh
bridge?
yeah, that
So I
was
don't know
one.
that.
man.
He was
was a
like,
little late
somebody.
there.
He was like, what bridge?
If only you was here a minute
He
earlier.
didn't say that was so jarring. He was like, what
It
bridge?
was jarring. At first, I thought that was him trying to like hit on her more. I mean, it was, but I thought that he was still just regular Superman. But then when it was like him just sitting down, and it's like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Superman trying to get cakes and somebody's about to die, man. I don't know. She's like,
Yeah, he was too late regardless. So yeah.
I swear he was.
Yeah. And my last thing, the end of the film, man, with the supercomputer, that was crazy, bro. Like that was like, it almost took me out. Like I understand, like the end, you got Superman, and you want that man to do something, like have an actual threat, because he could wrap these dudes up. And these guys ain't real villains, so they had to give him some kind of threat with the supercomputer. But that was the computer was turned off, then it turned itself back on, then took the villain's sister, absorbed her into itself. It became kind of like an Avatar film. It was shooting lasers. It was a lot going on at the end.
It was. Man.
Yeah, that was a little jarring. And I gotta say, I see what they did with Richard Pryor and Superman at the end, where it was kind of like a buddy cop thing. But I don't feel like the film really, it didn't go into that. That's not how the film was.
Took too long to get to that.
Yeah. By that point, like Gus did help Superman then, but at that point, I'm like, man, you kind of did a lot of stuff in this.
You got a lot of stuff to try to undo in this
That was a
amount of
lot
time.
of I was like, I don't know, man. You might have to do a little time. Like
You ruined the whole country, man.
you got to do a little time for
It would have worked better if it had been at the very beginning. He was like Superman's
Yes.
friend, and then like something happened in the middle to make him bad, and
Yeah.
he turned back into Superman's friend at the end. That would have been cool. Or if he had turned good much earlier in the film, that would have been cool. But he was like a dick the whole film, and in the last like 10 minutes, he was like, "Oh, I guess I'll help." And Superman was like, "Oh, thank you, Gus." And I'm like,
Yeah. There were like little hints early in the film where like the dude would tell him to do something and he would alter it a little bit, like the scene with the tanker. He didn't do the rule where like they would obey his rules without being able to move. That's why that one tanker was able to escape. So he did like subtly do something, but it always felt like it was for his benefit and not for the world's benefit.
Yeah.
So he felt like a villain that got away with it a little bit.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. I actually didn't hate this film. I thought like I said, the parts like when he was in Smallville, I actually really liked that. But the other parts where it kind of got, I think everything just went just a little too long. Like the comedy events went too long. Richard Pryor sections went too long. The motivations for the villains were just like really weak and not interesting. And as a whole, I just think the movie's okay. I would say about a 5 for me personally.
Okay. All right, Devin, it's your time to shine, brother. What did you think of the film?
Talk to me.
Man, when I turned this movie on, the first few minutes was just like it was just sensory overload. First off, the effects, those credits, intro credits effects is just jarring. Just like, bro, chill, please. They did. I think they did this in the second movie too. I'm like, okay, y'all going a little too overboard with the intro effects, man. Y'all is I guess at this time this is probably state of art. So it was like we just doing all of it, man. But man, the first few minutes was just straight the Three Stooges. Like it was just like on some Three Stooges. We got folks getting pies in the face. People, the dude with the seeing eye dog, like, sir, how do you grab? I only know what those things are called, but the things that like put the lines out with the paint. How do you grab that and not realize it's not your dog?
That's not a dog. Yeah.
Like he's not moving. He's like, hey, boy. Like, bro, it's not a dog. Like, what are you? And it's just like this chain reaction of just we got a dude come robbing out of the bank and he slide down a little thing like Sonic from Sonic Adventure 2. Then the cops was chasing him. The guy comes over there. He gets knocked in this thing by the blind guy with the paint thing. And so, the car, though. Somebody tell me how the car got filled with water. I need to know this.
Didn't he drive over a fire hydrant? Is that what happened?
That's not how. Yes, but that's exactly what happened, and that's what they're trying to tell us.
Yeah.
That's not how cars work.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, I can see maybe if the car was dropped from like a super high height right on top of it, like impaled the car maybe. But even still, and like so, it just made the doors not open. Like it wasn't even like the car was that damaged. And the people's like, "Well, I can't get." I'm like, "Sir, what is going on?"
What are
man?
you
One
all
point, I was
wrap up
like,
your hand
look.
and like punch the window? It's like, come
Yeah, I'm
on.
thinking, or get something sharp and like, man. I even asked the guys, I'm like, y'all sure this the right link, man? I think I watched the wrong movie, man. This can't be Superman.
Tried to warn you. I said, "Hey, man, the first 10 minutes of this movie is something else."
It really was.
It just, I mean, boy. And it kind of was like, well, I guess I understand this because the second movie was a lot more comedic. Richard Pryor, you know, it's weird. When I heard about Richard Pryor being in the movie, I'm thinking like it was gonna be more of a secondary role. Then I thought about it, I'm like, wait a minute. This is in a time period where Richard Pryor is probably like the hottest thing smoking in terms of like
He really was.
comedian. So he's basically he's really the star of the movie.
Yes.
And we saw him like 80% of the movie. I will say I think he did a okay job as Gus. First, Terrence mentioned this, like their depiction of how computers are used is just like, bro, like nobody's pressing 3 keys and it's like, oh yeah, I unlocked the codes to life. Like what are you?
Man, bro said it was so whack too, like at the start, because like they open up with him in there learning how to use computers, and the chick was like, how do you do bilateral blah 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 blah, and the dude was like, that's impossible. There's nobody can do that. That's simply impossible. And then like the next thing you see is him like, I did it. I'm like, okay.
He's like,
My man was so good he could probably figure out the anti-life equation.
Bro.
hey man,
Don't let Darkseid get a hold of him.
He'll do it for 5K.
Hey.
I'll do it for 80K.
86,000.
Man, that whole arc was just hilarious, man. Him, like, first off, why is that an advertisement on the back of a box of matches? That don't even. Why would that
Well,
be?
I mean, Websico clearly wasn't on the up and up as a company, so
Boy, I just this movie, the beginning just kind of threw me. I'm like, man, I don't even know what to expect at this point. I'm just here for the ride. I did make some notes about some things in the movie that I like, parts that I saw that was just like, this is crazy. I will say first, I'm actually happy that Superman or Clark finally realized, like, you know what, maybe I should just leave Lois alone and found somebody prettier and somebody nicer and somebody that actually likes him, like likes Clark, not just Superman.
I mean, he didn't go looking. Lois left. Lois went to Bermuda. I don't know what the fuck that was about. I'm like, why is your swimsuit out at this job? Like, what are you doing, Lois?
Well, I mean, he uses time wisely. He's like, hey, she gone? All right, well, you know. And of course, you know, she was salty at the end. I'm like, no, don't get salty now. Don't
exactly.
get salty
Don't get upset now.
What was the young reporter guy, the camera guy?
Oh, Jimmy.
Jimmy
Olsen.
Olsen.
Jimmy.
So the part where they went to where everything was in disarray at the chemical plant, just God, please help.
That was so stupid.
And the
Okay,
guy
so-
says,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why did he solve that problem like that? I was like, okay, look, man, it's
We're
one
talking about
thing if
Superman?
he doesn't. Yes,
Oh, the
it's one
lake.
thing
I
if
know
you
what
don't-
you're talking about too.
Oh,
he went and blew on the lake. I said, okay, look, man, because I was sitting, I'm like, oh, a fire. Well, he'll just blow that out with his super breath.
Thinking the same
And then
thing.
Thank you. Oh my
And then
god.
he never used super. I said, well, maybe he ain't got it. Damn if he'd go over to that lake and immediately use the super breath to cool off the crust of the lake so he could take that shot. I'm like, you don't get the fuck.
You
so you
could have
could
did
have
that
just
at
done
chemical
that.
plant.
remember at the beginning of the movie, he blew out that thing that was on fire, the penguin.
That's true.
Yeah.
Sure
The little
did.
bombs and the penguins are like, so
And then
Yeah,
even
that
like
hurt.
physics wise, it's like, how do you blow like he took the top
Yep.
layer of it and just
Sure
that
did,
by
yep.
itself is like, no, that's not how physics work. What are you doing?
oh, yes, it is.
It must not have been a
That-
deep lake.
that whole scene, man. Like, so this is crazy because what's the head of the Daily Planet, the guy that is over them? What's his name?
Perry White.
Perry told him, "Hey man, a good cameraman always keeps his camera. He eats with his camera, he sleeps with his camera." He's like, "All right, cool." So he finally gets there, and what does he do? He takes Perry's advice. He climbs up on a ladder. Oh, I gotta get this shot.
Fucked himself up.
The fireman's like, "What are you doing up there?" Drops off. He's like, he's on the
I get 2
ground.
more shots.
He's like, I gotta get 2 more shots. And then this man wound up on the ground, sound like Joseph from JoJo. Oh my God, help me! Somebody help me! Like,
Look, he had to make up for it in the first place because he was supposed to be doing his job at the start of the movie, taking photos of not Lex Luthor, but instead all he did was take a photo of old girl's titties. It's like 40 pictures of her titties and one picture of the dude. I was like, yeah, he should fire you. What the fuck you doing? Like, yo, you little creepy ass.
but the thing about it is when he came back, he's like, "Well, I sent you to give me some good pictures, and now you brought me back as a pro." I'm like, bro, you told him to do this. This is your fault.
Yeah, he was out of pocket because old boy had a broken leg and everything. He's like, he didn't take no fault for it.
It's
Sure
like
did.
you told him this, and I didn't get that. I didn't see it the first. I went back and I'm like, "Oh wait, you told him to do this. And he took your advice." And that whole scene, man, like the dude that was first off, the guy that was still in there, like Superman's like, "Well, you gotta get out, you gotta evacuate." He's like, "No, I have to stay." Like, sir, what is you staying going to help? What is that going to do?
I mean, it seemed like he was doing things as much as he could to keep the temperature below that below that temperature that it was gonna get like acid cloud type shit. So
This is
that
like-
I understood. He was a G because I mean, like he could have been like, Superman, get me the fuck up out of here and take me as far away as you can. Why? Don't worry about why. Just get me. I'll tell you why once you get me the fuck up out of here. But like instead, he just stood up in there. Was like,
But that's the thing.
He's
Like,
like, I'm doing
Superman's
it
here, like, why am I even staying here? Like, dude, if it does get hot enough, you can't stop it. So what is you standing here looking at it going to do? I'm just like, bro, get out, sir. Like, and of course I didn't realize it, but I was like, they set up a little plot point later on. I was like, okay, that scene with the lake. So first though, not just the fact that he froze the lake. The fact that he dropped the lake on top, that's not how that would have worked because everybody would have gotten crushed. The water would not
Thank you. It
melt
really
that
dissipated.
fast.
melted
Jesus.
just in time.
He came over there, and I'm like, that's not. I at least thought he was going to throw it and like eye laser it or something. No, just throw
They
it.
ain't got
and
the
it
money
just-
for that.
Superman
Like-
kills hundreds.
Bro,
That's why he went to the bar.
Causes acid explosion.
now, if this scene was in The Boys, that would have been like, oh yeah, he took the water and they thought it was going to melt, and he just killed everybody.
Yes, yeah.
Like,
That's
I
all
was
something the
like-
Seven would do.
I'm like, what is going on here? So when he he goes into his emo phase, Gus hands him the emo rock, which first of all, like we've already talked about, is like it's a green rock suit, man. Like
Just like I said.
what are we doing?
I can trust the United States government, which I mean, like, is a
No, you
thought that he
fucking
probably
can't.
would have had in the 80s. But I mean, like, also, nah, cut that out.
Like some random people just pull up out of nowhere with the most For the American people, wasn't your president and get some paint or some ink on his get pants? Like, what are you talking about, sir?
It was a Richard Pryor bit that went on way too long, just like Keem
That
said.
whole bit got uncomfortable, bro. I'm like, turn it off.
Even the millionaire's sister was rolling her eyes in the Jeep.
Yeah.
I was like,
They was all like, "Hey man, wrap this fake shit up." Come on, man.
I was just like, bro, why would you take this like this? And first of all, I'm like, man, Smallville, is it big enough to constitute the key to the city? Like, it's just like, it's crazy because Superman just kind of got here. And like, I don't think they know that he's Clark. So it's like he grew up here, but like, dang, he just got here. They're like, key to the city. Like, what? I just got here.
Well, he saved the kid.
Saved a lot of people.
And technically he saved I mean, like that seemed like it was pretty close to Smallville, like the whole fire and shit.
Man, that's still like pretty quick to give somebody keys to the city, man. It's just like
they also are probably just giving it to him because he saved the world a few times.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, they actually brought up that his accolades before they gave him the gift for why he got it.
Yeah.
In the movie.
The scene with Ricky, like this man just running off randomly, hitting his head, and that hilarious scene where Clark was like had the old school Windows sound symbol coming out his ear. I'm like, bro,
he did.
I was
like, is that real? Am I imagining that? But yeah, he did have the
I was like, that was probably state of the art, but he's like, oh, you can see the sound waves, you can hear the boy. Man.
That wasn't state of the art, that was Looney Tunes.
Man, that scene was so hilarious. And like, I know Sage mentioned this about the flying. The flying actually, in some spots it looked more natural. Like the green screen wasn't as bad, but it's almost like you could tell like when he would fly, he would stay low to the ground. So obviously he's on like strings or whatever. But it's like, I know one scene in particular, he landed and it's like he landed on 1 foot kind of ollie. I'm like, yeah, like he
did that quite a number of times where like he always kind of landed kind of like he was like stepping on air kind of thing. It was very weird.
Yeah. So I know he mentioned it. I'm like, yeah, this looks kind of, but I mean, I guess their budget was in those intro credits because that's what they spent most of it on. I ain't gonna try to go too long, but I'm just like hit on a few other points. When he turned emo, first of all, this man, like, I think your problem, Clark, is your women is your kryptonite, man. Every time a woman come around for something, she like, do this. He's like, I got you. I'll be back. Like, bro, like, she just said, take her. Go. What? You just going to do stuff this random woman? Like, you already know this woman.
I want the dolls. Lana wouldn't give them up. Lana would give them up. So I got to get them from somewhere.
He goes and destroys.
Kind of nice.
I mean, it's funny because like I forgot to mention that the villain was basically just like them doing Lex Luthor and his group again, except for like he was kind of the idiot. Like he tried to pretend like he just got the money. It's like he's the mastermind in a way, but it's like he's not even the chick that's supposed to be like just the sex appeal. She was even kind of smart. She said something at the end. I'm like, wait,
no. Lorelai was extremely smart.
Oh yeah, she's extremely smart.
Yeah,
like you caught her reading like a Kant book, like philosophy and shit. I was like, what the fuck going on?
Yeah.
And then like
it's a bit.
Yeah, you could tell she was just hiding her intelligence because like she was supposed to be a dumb blonde.
Yeah,
which also
she said something to Gus at the end.
It also relates to like funny enough her actress who's actually like doctoral. She has her PhD, so it's kind of like actress mimicking real life in a sense.
I was sleeping on her. I was not familiar with her game.
All right, then there we go.
She has a good game in this movie.
This guy, he's just a typical, like, he's basically just like a Lex Luthor type-esque. He tells Gus, like, I've never worn the same pair of socks more than once. I'm like, what kind of money you got when you? He's like, I've always had them donated and laundered to, like, sir.
Well, no, he said he didn't know, like, and that's another bit that went on too long, because I think Gus is like, well, hold on, what happens to the socks that you get rid of? He was like, I don't know, I assume they're laundered and given to the poor, or maybe they're turned into something else, or maybe they're turned into, and Gus was like, socks? I never thought of that. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
No, he said maybe they like turn into like dust white rags or some dust rags.
He said that. That was one of the things he said. And then like eventually Gus was like, maybe they just turned into socks.
The
And he was like, oh.
The scene where he blows the tanker up, well, punches it and just rips it out. When he comes back, I'm like, that's not how that works. Again, physics does not work like that. He blows the oil back into the tanker, like just like it's a. I'm like, sir, that's not how that works.
Even if it was how it worked, that oil would be contaminated.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
it's got water. Like, sir, like that's not how that. I'm like, this.
he gonna come back like, oil and water don't mix.
It's like this the 80s, man. The scene I think that took me out, and I think this is when I had to take a break. This might have been a scene I took a break. They were on top of their building with snow, and I'm like, how?
Oh, that was the weather machine that did that.
Just in that one singular spot, we got snow just on the top.
He
of the
had
building.
absolute control of the weather and thought nothing but how to make money off of it. But whatever. The real thing that made me stop was when he was like fell off of it with the skis on.
And he
like,
lived.
That's when he
He's
fell off,
totally
he was
intact.
dead.
He lived. How?
I knew he was dead, and
That's
he
the thing. I
was.
was just like,
I know he like skated on. I was like, okay, cool, but the speed you going at, and then he landed on his legs, and he landed kind of hard. I'm like, your legs would be fucking shattered, bro. What is going on?
And
Yeah,
then
he
that
would've-
goofy ass noise he made on the way down.
yeah,
Well,
he
that's the
would've-
Richard Pryor. Whoa. That's the Richard Pryor right there. You got to expect that from him.
He's like,
Bro,
I can't
Christ, bro.
ski. I'm like, bro, this
That
man
was
would have
Scared of
been
his
dead.
own reflection.
He would have
literally.
been dead when he hit that first incline, and then when he hit the gap, I'm like, okay, all right. So that's. I thought Superman was gonna ask him to come save him. Oh, he's just gonna get caught by Superman. I was like,
Yeah,
what?
That would have made a lot of sense, actually.
it
I'm
would
like,
have.
well, hell, what's the point of Superman being here? We got Richard Pryor. He's indestructible. We don't need Superman. He's a computer
indestructible.
genius, and he's indestructible. Power Man and Lex Luthor in one. So, this movie, I
He's
don't
Mr.
think-
Terrific.
Yes, he is everything. When they went there, they figured, okay, the kryptonite is what he's weak to. They got it wrong, but the fact that when Gus went and picked it up, the ladies are like, "Oh, your compound that you were looking for is ready." So you just come out of a room with some random rock compound, just exposed, not even in a box or case, and just hand it to him, and he picks it up with like 2 pieces of notebook paper. He's like, "Oh, well, why am I scared? I'm a human." Like, sir,
It's
Why
still
is it-
radioactive.
why is it not in a box? You're not picking up time. You're not picking up like freaking Benadryl. You're picking up space rock. You just
You know what, though? That kind of
Space
reflects.
rock.
Times.
Actually, it reflects the times, but also like this would later be seen again in the comics when Lex walked around carrying a kryptonite ring
Mm-hmm.
that gave him cancer, and they had to cut his hand off.
Oh wow.
So I mean, like
Interesting.
these geniuses aren't that smart. There you go.
man,
They
Boy.
too smart for their own good.
Sometimes.
man, I just it was so much in this movie, man. It was kind of like I said, over. I had to take a break from like the halfway point because there was just so much going on. The villain of the movie, he told when it didn't work, when he called him on the phone, he made some little reference like, "Oh, well, when like all the secret recipes, like the ingredients to the KFC, and you can't just think of that one. It doesn't work." It's like, well, yeah, that happened, and Superman didn't die. It's like, and he says to Gus, "Well, you couldn't do something as simple as just kill Superman." Like, sir, it's
Bruh.
Superman.
I had the same reaction. As simple as killing Superman. I'm
I
like,
was like, what are you talking about?
man,
This
this guy's
man's
godlike
expectations-
powers.
This man's expectations were way too high.
I was like, this is crazy. Superman. What are you talking about?
If he can steal $86,000 from my corporation, he should be able to kill Superman. Like, no,
Man,
That's if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball logic.
yeah.
So I'm not gonna be too. I got 2 more points I'm gonna hit on. So when Injustice Superman showed up, he just somehow automatically got the 5 o'clock shadow. His suit got darker and dingy. He got a tan. I'm like, bro, what's happening here? He was in Lena's house. He just all of a sudden just reading the paper. All of a sudden just and she's like, she's gonna sit down and I guess I'm gonna have like a little snack or something or a meal. And then
She
she's
wanted
like,
a snack, all right.
there's something going down at the bridge and I need your help. He's like, I'll get it. I'll get to it.
I need some right now.
And so he just sits down and she's looking bewildered, like, but
it was like bewildered, then terrified. She was like, whoa, what's going on with this man?
It's like people are in danger. And she's like, you know what? I think you should go to the bridge. She's like, what bridge? I was like, hey, man. Hey, Superman.
That man went from Superman to Meat Man.
And what's funny is, it's like when he got there, the police, it's like everybody just like, hey, if he ain't on his job, nobody cares. Police officer, well, if he'd have showed up a minute earlier, he would have, he just walked off. I'm like, dang. I wonder about how many times he saved y'all. Like, last point, man, that ending, bro, I just, this man came up with some hobbled up plans written on like, I think a cigarette box and just scraps of paper, like, make this supercomputer.
Random collection of McDonald's receipts and shit.
I'm just like, what is going on? And when I saw that computer boot up, I thought the first thing came to my mind was World's Strongest. I thought I was looking at that laboratory when they was taking it. Actually went too far off because the computer was trying to take folks in.
Not World's Strongest, bro.
When that thing booted up, and I said, "Hey, this Dragon Ball here, man, somebody about to get body stolen or something." And I was close. Another thing came to mind: Resident Evil, Red Queen. I'm like, you all are going to die down here. And that was almost.
We're all going to die down here.
But the wildest part about this scene was how they were fighting Superman. Atari 2800. It's like, bro, I'm like, product plate. I was like, this how y'all fight Superman? And then Superman just get killed here. I know about a random missile. Oh, he can dodge rockets, but he can't dodge a missile. What?
I ain't gonna lie.
Are you serious?
Them graphics would have been state of the art at the time. Those were good looking graphics.
Yes,
Definitely was. That was better than NES.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm like,
graphics was lit.
It was,
man. And I just didn't expect it. I really thought this was gonna be like, okay, Superman's gonna come in, he's gonna destroy this computer, and then I said, wait a minute, are they gonna try to make this like this thing become sentient, and he's gonna have to? I thought what they were kind of doing is when it absorbed the younger sister. I thought is that supposed to be like a Metallo introduction or something? I just kind of thought that randomly. And then I thought about Brainiac. But then I was like, oh, they just brought out Jamie Foxx's Electro. That's what they did. Okay, cool. I was like, this is wild. People getting tossed around. The computer's like, no, I'm staying alive. I'm just like, and then like you all said, it's like he was like, Gus is like, he's actually responsible for most of this. So I think you should, like, you take it. I get it. Like, you don't seem as evil as the rest of them.
He had that last second save, and that was apparently was enough for Superman to be like, I give him a break. And
I guess maybe he heard them giving him all that praise. All right, guys, this is how I'm gonna end it. I knew I forgot the main thing. When Gus came back to them and told them, man, you know what? Our plans would work, man, but that Superman, he came over there and he stopped everything, man. He just came out of nowhere, man. It just everything was going good. It's like when he turned that tornado upside down, that's when I paused the movie. I said, man, Superman he do what he want. Which is accurate, because when he fought the Elite, he mind reading tornadoes, doing everything. So I'm like, I guess you could literally pick a tornado. He's like, yeah, man, he took the bottom of it and put it upside down. I'm like, yep. And the way it looked is just what made it even funny. It's just like, all right, I had to take about a 30-minute break before I continued that movie. So in just giving my score on it, it was a good watch for me, but it didn't have me cracking up like 2 did. And it was a lot of loose stuff. It's almost like the first half hour didn't even really connect fully with the second half. It was like disjointed a lot. And there's a lot of fluff. I know before we even watched this, Terrence was like another 2 hours, and I'm just like, there's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of stuff, like extra stuff going on.
This didn't need to be 2 hours at all.
Yeah, this is hour and a half, maybe not even an hour and a half. So I would give it probably a 6. It has some good moments in it. That beginning was funny. Him turning upside down a tornado was definitely a classic moment. But it just had, and again, I think the problem, like I said, when I really finally realized, okay, Richard Pryor's in this movie, the problem is like it's about Superman, but you casted somebody that's like you had to pay him. And Sage mentioned like the movie was like 40 million, and he got an eighth of the budget, like 5 million. So it's like you kind of run into that problem of this he's a comedian superstar, so you can't just use him and not have him on screen time. You got to use him. So now you just got, like Rakeem said, the Adventures of Richard Pryor and Superman. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 6, man.
All right. I guess I'm up. I didn't hate this film. Or let me say it another way. Like, this movie to me is not worse than Superman 2.
I agree.
Superman 2 had a bunch of really dumb, goofy shit. And my problem with that was like Zod ain't supposed to be goofy. You know, like so all the goofy spots, all the goofy moments with the Kryptonians in the second film, they felt out of place. These characters, so many of them, in fact, all of them aside from Superman and Lana, I guess, don't have an pre-existing reputation. So like it's a bunch of goofy shit coming from characters that it's like, well, I mean, like they have there's nothing defining them. So if they're goofy, they're just goofy. And I'll admit at first I did not like this film at all. Like I still don't like the first half except as like a comedy, but I wasn't expecting no comedy at first, even though I knew Richard Pryor was in it, but I was like, damn, this shit's straight up too silly.
Yeah.
Like y'all said, that man Gus went from not being able to hold down a job at McDonald's. He was fries, no fries, bun, no bun. It's a lot. He could only hold that job for 28 minutes, apparently.
A kitchen technician.
Horrible.
Yeah, kitchen technician. Yeah.
What a title.
He couldn't keep that. And then all of a sudden he was a super genius computer programmer. It's like, bro, what the fuck? Like, how? Like, ain't no way. But the second half, I like the longer I started watching it, the more I settled in. And then I started noticing stuff, and I said, well, hold on, let me do some research. And then it turns out the original script was not just supposed to have Brainiac in it. It was supposed to have Mr. Mxyzptlk in it. And I'm like, okay. Warner Brothers said no because it would have been too expensive. But like when you look at the film, so much of it would have made more sense if Mr. Mxyzptlk had been involved. Like some of the sillier shit, it'd have been like, oh, yeah.
Richard Pryor, Mxyzptlk.
Well, he was supposed to be Brainiac. So, like, he was supposed to get possessed, and that was why he was going to be like a super smart and all of that, which would have made sense, too. And then you could have had another character be Mr. Mxyzptlk, and you could have done a lot of it. And like, with some minor changes, this could have been the most comic book Superman film ever. Because, like, the first film, I mean, like, Lex was weird. And actually, let's just get to that. Because you have Robert Vaughn in this film as Bubba Wesker. And Bubba Wesker is basically... It's funny because we've all been calling him Lex, but at the time he was not Lex. He was his own character. He was nothing like Lex. Like, of course, none of us were born before Crisis on Infinite Earths came out, or before the 1986 Man of Steel comic book that like rebooted Superman. When those films came out, Lex was not a businessman. He was an evil super scientist. The 1978 film was an accurate portrayal of what Lex Luthor was like. But to us, the character that Robert Vaughn plays feels more like Lex than Gene Hackman did. And to me, that just kind of felt more comfortable just watching him and his sister try to scheme and outsmart Superman and take him down and shit. And, you know, like he was manipulating anybody around him to like come up. He basically kind of like, even though his girlfriend Lorelei was smarter than he was, I mean, like she knew where her bread was buttered. So he manipulated her into acting stupid. His sister just did whatever he told her to do, and then like Gus was doing whatever he told. So like y'all was calling him dumb, and I was like, I mean, he's not as smart as they are. He's smart enough to have him doing whatever he said. So I mean, that kind of worked for me. And I mean, I don't know. Like, I like this film about as much, or maybe slightly more than Superman 2. To be clear, neither of them are in the same universe as Superman 1. They're not close. But this one feels more like an early Bronze Age comic Superman adventure than Superman 2. And in there, of course, you have all those other elements like the Smallville stuff, the Superman-y bits that just aren't really that prevalent in the first two films. Like Lana, like y'all brought up Lana, she come into play while Lois is gone, even though it didn't make no damn sense. Because the end of Superman 2, he was like, oh, I can't fall in love. I got to use my powers for the sake of humanity. And he got here, he was like, man, fuck that shit. Annette O'Toole, hot as a motherfucker. I'm trying to get in them draws. And actually, this Superman is horny as fuck. He spent most of the movie trying to fuck Lana, and then when he turned evil, wasted no time banging Lorelei. And by the way, shout out, because like I thought the movie was gonna let Clark because he was having like his little split personality, and he turned into super dick for a little bit, and I was like, oh man, this is weird. But like he was grimy. Like he saw Lorelai, and she was like, I just need you to take care of this tanker. You say no more. Flew out to the ocean, punched a hole in that bitch. Was like, yeah, I bet y'all ain't going nowhere with this oil now. Flew back, and she was like, you want some champagne? He's like, nah, you know what I want. And like they just cut away. They cut away. He got right to it. I was like, cool. And the reason why I'm happy about that is because I'm glad they ain't do no nonsense, like having him be like what made him snap out of it was the kid, right? I was like, please don't let the fucking be the thing to help him snap out of it, because I'd be pissed. Because that would have been like, oh, fucking is against my character. And what? You was ruining people's lives. You was blowing out the fucking Olympic torch and knocking over straightening out the Leaning Tower, all that shit. You was fucking with people. That wasn't against your character, but fucking with, I would have been pissed. So I'm glad they ain't do that. I'm glad they was just like, oh, no. I'm getting these walls. I'm getting something. I'm coming out here with something. So I was glad they did that. And like, I also, that Clark Superman fight, man. Fuck.
I gotta talk about that. So I wanted to ask a question. So this was an internal battle, right? Like this is within himself. He wasn't physically fighting himself.
I don't know.
That was very confusing.
Because like
he was going at it with himself.
I mean, it's one of those things, kind of like in Superman 2, where he threw out the plastic and covered the like, and then like he kissed Lois and made her forget he had super amnesia powers.
Yeah.
You know, this is very, like I said, this is prior to Man of Steel. After Man of Steel, the comic book, they kind of rebooted and like made his powers, like they put his powers in stone. This is what he can do. This is what he can't do. Before that, a lot of times it was like, hey man, it's Superman. Where'd that power come from? It's Superman. So I don't know, maybe he had the power to split himself off and make two of himself so they can fight it out. And that fight, it was horrible. Although there are some like dark bits to it, and some of this I imagine is like born out of us being from 2024 and this movie being from 1983, because there are some bits where I'm like, whoa, this is kind of dark. Like, because like the divorced dad Superman was like trying to kill Clark, and like he went for some of the most grim methods possible. Like, hey man, I'm gonna put you in this fucking machine to get you crushed, and you can hear Clark in that bitch like, oh shit. And then like he survived that. He was like, bet, I'm gonna put you in this goddamn other machine, and that's gonna crush you. And you could hear Clark screaming again, and that shit was like kind of chilling. Except, you know, of course, he's still Superman, so he came out was like, I don't care nothing about none of that. But like Clark just let himself get beat up bad in like this horribly horrible special effects fight. But like I think about it, actual fights between actual superhumans were like non-existent until like wait, 2002 maybe with Spider-Man. Like real talk, like when do y'all think the first good film with superhuman fights? Like everybody got powers.
Everyone has powers.
The Matrix?
It probably would. If we're talking comic books, then probably would be the X films. Probably.
Maybe X-Men.
No.
Maybe
Actually,
X-Men
no. Well, no, that doesn't count. I guess Blade wouldn't, because Blade wouldn't count. Or does
vampires.
I mean, does that still fall under like the
you
superhero?
want, I guess.
I mean, I guess.
I'm talking about like some, because that's still street level powers. I'm talking about I got superpowers. I can jump in the air 1 billion miles. I can punch somebody through a wall, like that type shit.
Yeah, it probably would be the X series then. At least I think so.
So like a lot of those films, they didn't know what to do with them, and like superpowers or even like good superpowered fights, they all look kind of bad until like maybe a couple decades ago. So like I'm not surprised that it looked bad, but I was like, okay, this looks pretty shit. But yeah, I mean like it had its moments that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the fact that Superman was able to get one over on his old high school bully. I enjoyed getting to see some of Smallville, even if Lana and her dumbass son was taking hella liberties. It's like, oh yeah, you know, come in for the birthday party. It's like, man, a birthday party, man, like get the fuck away from me. But like, I guess Keem was right. Like, it was a trick to like get him to do like a show for like Smallville to celebrate him and shit. If it had been a birthday party, I'd have been like, I'm Superman. I ain't got time for all that. I ain't got time to be showing up for that bullshit. I'm saving all types of people. I'd rather pull a cat out of a tree to show up back at Smallville for that bullshit. But yeah, I don't remember what I gave Superman to. But whatever I gave that, give it to this. Because like if it was a 6, it's a 6. If it's a 7, it's a 7. Because like this film is no worse than Superman 2. Just because, and that could either be me saying how well I thought of this film or just how poorly I saw Superman 2. Take your pick. But like I guess I was like, man, and yeah, I mean, like, make no mistake, Richard Pryor, he dragged that bitch down because it was just too much of him. And I think in any other time period, because this is, I mean, we still in proto superhero films. Like we not nowhere near the Batman films. We not nowhere near the early Marvel stuff. Like Terrence was bringing up the Blade, the X-Men's. We not nowhere near none of that. This is like one of the earliest superhero films ever. And so like there are mistakes they made here that wouldn't be made later on. Like there's no way they would have made up a brand new character for Richard Pryor if he was going to be that integral to the film. He would have been somebody. He would have been Mr. Mxyzptlk, like Keem said, or they would have gone with the original script idea and made him like possessed by Brainiac. They'd have done something. What's up, Keem?
Yeah. Or like a modern day version that would be like Kevin Hart playing Roland in Borderlands. He'd be integrated movie some kind of way.
We gonna give you something, some kind of character that already exists, because ain't no sense in us making up a new character if you gonna have this many lines and this many scenes. It'd be ridiculous. And so yeah, I think, and I guess some of this is it's so close to being a good movie, and like with a few tweaks and a few cuts here and there, and then like just leaning further into the comic book shit that that the script already was trying to do. Hell, if it had done that, I might have said it was as good as Superman 1. Because it didn't. I'm like, all right, it falls down to just be at that Superman 2 level. Real quick, let's just go ahead and talk about it. How do y'all rank the Superman film so far? Knowing that 4 is coming up soon, and we're gonna check that out next month. How do you rank the Superman films, Rakeem?
So this is easy for me. Superman 1 is, like you said, like I think we all can agree, is by far the best of the film so far. But I actually enjoyed this film more than 2. Mainly because like it was just more grounded. Like you had human villains, you had relatability with Clark. He got to get outside of the lowest bubble and like, get a kind of a glimpse into his past. It connected itself from the first movie with like the long lost love interest and the high school bully and having it come full circle. So that was a character growth moment for him as a whole and some development for side characters. There were moments in this movie I genuinely liked. With 2, the stuff with Zod and them dudes and them fight scenes and how that took, like, that was just, they were trying to do what we try to do now with like the high level action in Marvel movies that we can do. They just couldn't do it back then. They just didn't have that cinematography. At least the people who made this movie, there was definitely movies with good cinematography back then. But this movie specifically with the superheroes, it was hard.
They didn't even know how to do superhero fights yet. So
right, they just didn't know how to do it. The scale wasn't there yet. And you could see it. And that really dragged that film. That's some funny moments in that film just from off the fight scenes alone. But yeah, I like some stuff from 3 more than 2. So for me, easy. First one by far. I'm gonna go with 3, and I'm gonna go with 2.
Okay. Devin, what about you?
It's easy for me, man. 2, 3, 1 for me, man.
2, 3, 1. Wow.
One is at the
complete opposite order.
God dang.
2, 3, 1 for me, man.
Hold on.
Wait. One at the back.
Hey man, hey, Neil before Zod, man.
Okay, man.
Hey,
I got that part.
Neil before
Why is 3
Zod,
ahead of 1?
I mean, still, man, there was some hilarious moments, man. 1 was cool, but I don't know, man. I get it. Like it's a good like first Superman movie, but man, after 2 showed this is comedic chops. I'm like, I like this as a comedic series, man. I ain't gonna lie. Like show me the funny, man.
Yeah.
I think that says a lot about the Superman movies, the fact that we're looking to them for comedy.
I'm ready for 4, man. I will say I agree with Sage.
This one was just a comedy at this point. This one definitely was.
I will agree with Sage. Zod is not a type of character that you don't make him a play. He's not nobody's playing around. He ain't playing with nobody. So it was a little weird to see them coming in like
why do you speak to me in this way when you know I will kill you for it?
like no, he would have just killed him. That's not Zod is not like so. I do think I wish they would have done it like that. But then Rakeem, like Rakeem said, they were doing they bit off more than they could chew. You could tell with the effects, even more so in the third movie. Like the the third movie's effects were a little cleaner, even though some of them was still kind of rough, but they were cleaner than the second movie because they were just trying too much. I mean, it was too much of the all this and stuff. But yeah, man. Two. Come on, man. Too many classic moments. I mean, Clark walking back to Antarctica. Come on, you can't beat that. You can't beat that. You can't beat that. Somehow he walked back. He did walk back.
You got me there.
And they came back. Drove back from Antarctica. To get burgers. So
how the fuck and where they found that spot so that they could get something to eat, I don't know. Like they ain't think about that shit at all.
You can't beat that, man.
Terrence, what's your rankings, bro?
For me, it's actually 1, 2, 3, and I get where you all are coming from in regards to 2. It's like, yeah, when I do think that 3, like I said, 3 is not a horrible movie, and I don't think it lags that far behind 2. But at the same time, in terms of writing and how things are executed, 2 is slightly better than 3 in my opinion. Just because, like, I know you all talk about the effects and how they, seem honky dory now, but like even I was far more engaged with 2 than I was with 3. I'm not gonna lie. Like an hour into 3, I was like, man, this movie is a chore. I am not having a good time watching this movie. Even the stuff that was supposed to be funny, I wasn't laughing at it. So I was like, 1 is definitely the best out of all of them. It's like the definitive Superman movie out of this quadrilogy, whatever you call it. Quadrilogy, yeah. 2, even though Zod is kind of silly, like I don't personally think he was that silly, but I can understand where you all are coming from in terms of like, yeah, he could have been more serious. But I just think that 3 is
Neil, though.
yeah, that. I still think that 3 just is it leans a little too bit into the comedy. I'll put it this way. 3 to me, we haven't watched 4 yet, so this opinion will change probably when we watch 4. But 3 to me is the equivalent of Thor: Love and Thunder for this trilogy. In terms of you've leaned way too far into the jokes, it's become way too campy. It's like, all right, you're doing too much. So that's how I feel about 3. So yeah, I would say 1, 2, 3 for me.
Okay. Will, where do you stand, brother?
I too will also go in the direction of 1, 2, and 3 because while I do see what King was getting at, I understand that and I can see that. I can see why he would put 3 ahead of 2, but it's just what 3 did in the place of what 2 did makes me kind of just want to put it on the backside, just like it's gonna sit right here in the last spot until I at least see what 4 does. Until I see what 4 does, 3 is where it's at. If 4 somehow manages to outdo 3 somehow, which I'm praying it doesn't. I don't know. I can't say.
Well,
no.
No one says 4 is a good film.
Hearing that is already scaring me on how this is gonna look, because at this point my order may just end up being the way they came out. So we don't have to see.
No.
I mean, keep in mind, after they made 4, you didn't get another superhero film because 4 came out, I think, in 1989 or 1990 or something like that. Actually, it came out before Batman. So 87, I think. Keep in mind, after they made Quest for Peace, they never made another Superman film until Superman Returns in 2006.
Ow.
And that movie sucked.
And that movie wasn't good. So, although it was like a reboot. Well, not a reboot, but like a midquel. A midquel.
Exactly.
It takes place between. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's correct. It takes place between 2 and 3. I'm gonna go, and this is, I guess I'm gonna go with Rakeem and say 1, 3, 2. I want to say 1 and then 2 and 3 equal, but the more I think about 2, the more I'm like, man, we don't get this shit. Like when they stormed the White House, I'm like, man, that scene where because again, I'm going off the argument of Zod is not supposed to be funny. And so like that scene where they storm the White House and knock that rocket launcher up and the rocket launcher exploded, hit a chandelier and like knocked them all out. What the fuck am I watching, bro? Like this shit was so fucking silly. And I do agree with Terrence. Like the first half of this film was a chore. But by the second half, I found myself being like, well, actually, I'm kind of engaged a little bit. And my brain, I guess the dumb comic book part of my brain was just starting to think about all the connections and how it could have been more of a comic book film. And so a lot of it is just me going like, oh man, this was so close to being like a really comic booky ass Superman film. So I'm gonna give it a pass. So I guess it is gonna be 1, 3, 2 for me. Okay, that's gonna wrap this week up. Y'all know the drill. hit that subscription button on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on TikTok. Tell all your nerdy ass friends and family about us. Do me a personal favor. Have an excellent week. Peace.
Peace out.